Some films scream for attention. This one whispered and waited. The Sentinel, 2006, didn't arrive with critical praise or cult reverence. It emerged quietly, almost shyly, borrowing a title from a better-known predecessor and presenting a story that felt out of step with the decade it came from. Not outdated, just dissonant. Audiences didn't know what to make of it. Critics labeled it forgettable, and the studio treated it like a contractual obligation. But something about this film lingered not because of what it showed, but because of what it refused to explain. It's not quite a remake, not quite original, more like an echo of a story told in another room, to someone else. Its pacing is too deliberate, its silence is too calculated. Characters move like they've been told not to wake something, and yet, in all its ambiguity, the Sentinel holds a presence like something you're not supposed to look directly at. Over time, the film has resurfaced not through mainstream revival, but through private threads, late-night rewatches, and genre forums that specialize in the unspoken. People began asking questions. Why does the director have no credits? Why do some scenes exist in only one DVD region? Why do the mirrors in that one hallway not work like they should? This isn't a story about an overlooked horror film. It's about something that was filmed and never really explained. These are 20 weird facts you didn't know about. The Sentinel, 2006. And if something feels off while you're watching, don't worry. That just means it's working. Fact 1. The name on the poster wasn't the film that was shot. From the moment it was announced as The Sentinel, confusion followed. Audiences anticipated a remake of the 1977 cult horror, but what arrived shared no characters, no plot, and no connection beyond the title. It was a misalignment so sharp it felt intentional, but it wasn't the creative team's decision. Sources close to production confirmed the film was shot under a different name, The Watcher in the Hollow. The original title was cryptic but accurate, more reflective of the film's tone and themes. Then, in the final weeks, a studio executive overruled the team. The reason? Familiarity. A recognizable title might boost visibility in a saturated market, yet something shifted after the change. The edit took a colder turn. Pauses lingered longer. The film stopped trying to explain itself. It's as if the project had adjusted to its new identity, not just in name, but in function. Behind the scenes, one assistant noted a handwritten phrase taped to the editing console during final assembly. If you rename the vessel, be sure you know what you're summoning. No one knows who wrote it. Fact 2. The film's most iconic location may not have been legally accessible. The church at the center of the Sentinel wasn't listed on any official production registry. Permits were vague. Location records incomplete. Even local residents had little to say, just that it had been abandoned since before the storm. The crew entered through an unlocked side door. Inside, dust covered everything except the altar, which was pristine. Candles had been recently burned. Pages from hymnals were folded into strange geometric shape. When asked who secured the location, the line producer shrugged. He said the site was recommended by someone who didn't leave a card. Technical issues plagued the shoot there, batteries drained fast, boom mics caught breathy audio with no speakers, and cameras occasionally lost focus for no reason. One day, a red ribbon appeared tied to the main entrance. No one claimed responsibility. The crew left it there. On the last day of filming, a message was discovered etched into the underside of a pew. You brought the light. Now leave it behind. They didn't return for reshoots. Fact 3. Test audiences didn't hate the original cut, they feared it. The first completed version of The Sentinel ran over 2 hours and had an entirely different rhythm. Scenes lingered without movement. Characters repeated phrases under their breath. A clock ticked for 5 full minutes in silence. Early viewers described a strange unease, not boredom, but a discomfort that sat under the skin. The pacing wasn't slow, it was looping. Certain props appeared in the background before being introduced. Dialogue contradicted itself mid-sentence. One woman left halfway through and later emailed the studio. She wrote, "It felt like the movie knew I was watching it." Executives responded swiftly. A mandate was issued to cut 35 minutes. Editors removed the eeriest material, long mirror shots, still frames with shifting shadows, and an extended hallway sequence that never resolved. Those who worked on the original version said it had structure, but not narrative. It functioned more like a memory than a story. When asked why it was changed, the editor offered only one sentence. Too many people felt like it didn't end when the credits rolled. Fact 4. The film's atmosphere didn't come from the script. It came from what they recorded by accident. Rather than manufacture ambiance in post, the sound team took a different approach. They traveled to a deserted monastery in rural France, closed since the late 1950s due to structural collapse and lack of clergy. They recorded hours of ambient material wind through stone, wood groaning under tension, distant drips echoing from crypt walls. But when they reviewed the files, something wasn't right. Several clips contained overlapping vocalizations, chants that no one on the team remembered hearing. Some included rhythmic knocking, always in sets of 7. The team dismissed it at first, until one of the assistants began experiencing panic attacks during playback. Only a few of those recordings made it into the final mix layered beneath dialogue, stretched until nearly unrecognizable. But sound engineers who've dissected the waveform claim there's a frequency that repeats, impossible to generate naturally. One recording was labeled Response 3 Unverified. It wasn't clear what it was responding to. Fact 5. One take was enough. She didn't ask for a second. The lead actress, known for her composure on set, approached every scene with discipline. But something changed during the basement sequence. She descended the stone staircase as written, paused at the iron grate, and looked forward. Cut. Perfect take. She walked off set, pale and silent. When the director asked if she wanted another take, she declined. "We got what we needed," she said, and refused to enter that space again. Later that night, she called the producer and requested a priest visit the set, not for spiritual guidance, but for presence. She wore a charm the rest of production and wouldn't shoot in confined spaces after that. When asked about it years later, she smiled, then said something strange. It blinked first. No one ever figured out what it was. Fact 6. The man who directed the film may never have existed. David S. Carrick is credited as director. That name appears in the official paperwork, marketing materials, and end credits. But no one on set could confirm much about him. He never shared personal stories, never stayed for rap drinks. He communicated in brief notes, often unsigned, and never offered interviews. His IMDb profile is empty except for this film. No resume, no photo. After production, he vanished. Contact information bounced. The address on his contract turned out to be a condemned property. The studio refused to comment. Some say Carrick was a pseudonym for a known director testing under anonymity. Others suspect he was a placeholder name invented to fulfill a production requirement. But one assistant camera operator swears she saw him watching playback alone one night, smiling not at the monitor, but at the reflection in the black screen. He turned. No one was behind him. Fact 7. The original poster vanished before the film ever reached theaters. Early marketing materials for the Sentinel featured a haunting image, a decaying religious statue with its face eroded, standing in front of a chained cathedral door. The caption read, "Some doors close for a reason," then it disappeared. The image was scrubbed from official channels within days. A formal complaint from a religious institution reportedly accused the studio of intentional desecration of sacred imagery. No lawsuit followed, but silence did. Later, it emerged that the statue wasn't a creation of the art department. It existed. A location scout had taken the photo during a pre-production trip to a chapel no longer listed on city records. That chapel was later deemed unsafe and demolished. Oddly, no other photos from that scout's camera survived. Just that one. Collectors who own the original promotional materials say the print has a strange texture, almost burned at the edges, as if aged unnaturally fast. No one at the studio will confirm it was ever officially approved, but someone approved it long enough to let it be seen once. Fact 8. There was an ending. Then there was a different one. The version that reached audiences ends quietly. The protagonist walks away, the church behind her, the screen fading to black. But early viewers at a private test screening recall something else. In that version, the protagonist never leaves. She opens a hidden door behind the altar, steps into darkness. The camera remains still as ambient sound fades. Then, just before the screen cuts out, she whispers, "You were always inside." The studio claimed the scene didn't test well. Audiences called it incomplete, circular, unsettling. So they replaced it with something linear, cleaner. But one editor said the change wasn't about clarity, it was about containment. That version, he said, felt like it kept playing long after it ended. To this day, no official alternate ending exists. But fragments appear in fan forums, GIFs, stills, recordings, none of them traced back to a clear source. Almost like the film is trying to remember itself. Fact 9. One of the film's most disturbing scenes might have happened before it was written. Near the climax, a character falls from a spiral staircase in the church tower. No lead-up, no aftermath. The moment is raw, brief, and completely unscored. It lands like a memory breaking through a dream. At first, it seemed abrupt. Then someone found something. A retired location assistant wrote in a blog post, now deleted, that the tower where the scene was shot had its own local legend. A nun fell to her death during a ritual in the 1,960 seconds. There were no records, just whispers. A death with no funeral, no body, and no explanation. The director never acknowledged the story, but he did insist that the fall be filmed with no cuts, no stunt, and no sound effects. "Let gravity speak," he reportedly said. The actress who performed the fall said nothing about it publicly, but her next 3 roles were all voiceless characters. Some things echo louder when left unsaid. Fact 10. The film's shadows weren't just aesthetic, they were resistance. Midway through production, the studio pushed for changes. They wanted more light, brighter sets, easier visibility. Executives called the early footage too murky and alienating. The director responded by removing nearly all artificial lighting from key sequences. Scenes that could have been brightly lit were instead captured using only ambient sources, moonlight through stained glass, candle reflections in pools of water, flashlights flickering across stone. It wasn't about atmosphere, it was a message. The lighting team struggled. Several shots required near-total silence on set to pick up soft exposure. Still, the director persisted, saying, if they can see everything, they'll stop looking. The end result was a film that doesn't reveal it withholds. Later, during post, colorists were instructed not to fix the dark. And so, it remained, not underexposed, but unconcerned with being understood. Fact 11. One role was removed, not rewritten, not recast, erased. An actor was hired to play the church's groundskeeper. He attended a table read. He had fittings, a voiceover session. Then he didn't show up on set. No explanation, no notice, gone. The team tried contacting him, nothing. His apartment lease had been terminated weeks earlier. His phone disconnected. Even his agent had no idea what happened. Rather than delay, the filmmakers rewrote the rollout entirely. The scene stayed, but the character never appeared, just an empty space where someone was meant to be. Later, someone leaked a rough version of the original trailer. It included a voiceover that no longer matched anyone in the film. Not all watchers are willing, some are assigned. No credits list that line. No file exists in the studio's archives. Whoever he was, he entered the story and then exited it completely. Fact 12. The most unsettling scene didn't feature horror, just ritual. A deleted sequence known internally as The Circle was removed just weeks before release. No blood, no monsters, just hooded figures walking counterclockwise around an unlit altar, chanting words that didn't translate. Test audiences felt uneasy, not disturbed, not scared, just invaded. The studio didn't fight the decision. The notes cited unresolvable discomfort. Editors claimed that no matter how they recut the footage, it always landed the same: silent, slow, and wrong. One technician noted a consistent glitch when rendering the scene. The footage desaturated on export even when color grading was locked. Eventually, the sequence was abandoned, but the chant remained buried deep beneath the film's final mix, a low, barely audible loop that starts during the end credits and fades 73 seconds in. Some say it's just leftover audio. Others say it's a warning, or worse, a continuation. Fact 13. One shot revealed more than it was meant to. There's a hallway scene, late in the second act. The protagonist passes a row of mirrors, each old, fogged, and uneven. Her reflection appears in everyone, until it doesn't. In one mirror, she's missing. It's not a blink and you'll miss it trick. It lingers. A clean, wide shot. Her body passes the frame. No reflection, no digital manipulation, no camera crew visible, just the hallway, seemingly empty. Crew later insisted it wasn't an effect. There were no rigs, no green screen, no matte painting. The mirror was real, bolted to the wall. When asked, the director said, "That wasn't a mistake, that was a reply." No one has been able to recreate the effect. Same lens, same lighting, always results in a standard reflection. But in that single take, something chose not to show up. Or worse, it did, but not what they expected. Fact 14. A background detail started appearing where it shouldn't. In one scene, almost imperceptibly, the phrase, "Don't look upstairs," is scribbled above a wooden arch. No one comments on it. It's never addressed. The camera doesn't focus on it. Then it began showing up elsewhere. Crew reported finding it written on set pieces that hadn't yet been used. A piece of grip equipment had it scratched into the handle. A roll of film was labeled with the same phrase in red ink, no one knew by who. Security footage from the lot was checked. The hard drives had been wiped. Eventually, the message stopped appearing. But the final day of filming ended with someone taping that same phrase typed, not handwritten, to the inside of the director's chair. Nobody saw who did it, but everyone agreed not to remove it until after wrap. Fact 15. One performer didn't audition. She said she'd already been cast. Her name appeared late in the process, referred by a mutual contact. The director approved her without screen test. She arrived prepared, quiet, unnervingly familiar with the dialogue lines that hadn't been finalized. She mentioned dreams, long ones, recurring, centered around a dark building with endless doors. She described details from scenes that had only been shot days earlier. When asked about the coincidence, she answered, "It's not coincidence if you're just following instructions." After filming, she vanished from the spotlight. No more roles, no interviews. One cryptic blog post appeared a year later under her name. It read, "I wasn't acting, I was remembering." Then the blog was deleted, but the post was archived. Fact 16. A single version of the film contains something no one added. The Region 4 DVD, released quietly in Australia and parts of South America, includes a post-credits scene not found on any other version. It's not listed, it's not mentioned, it's just there. The shot is simple, the church nave, empty, dust floating in the air. Then, a figure at the far end barely visible, not moving, not reacting, just standing. No sound, no credits. Only a single word, flashed in pale red font for a split second before the screen cuts out. Return. The studio claims no knowledge of this sequence. Editors say it wasn't in any export batch. The master file contains no such scene. Collectors who own the disc confirm it's not an After Effect or Easter egg. It's embedded in the playback, and somehow, only in that region. Fact 17. Some people remember an ending that doesn't officially exist. At a horror festival in Italy, the Sentinel was screened using a 35mm print sourced locally. The final scene was different, dramatically. Instead of walking away, the protagonist opens a second door behind the altar. The camera remains static. She steps through. The screen fades not to black, but to a pulsating red hue. Then, nothing. No credits, no music. Attendees were confused. Some thought it was a formatting issue, but multiple people recalled one detail, a sharp audio cue just before the fade that resembled a reverse scream. The festival offered no explanation. The reel was returned. That version has never played again. An anonymous user uploaded footage to a horror forum years later. It lasted 12 hours online before being removed, not for copyright, but for content violation. No specifics were given, just a warning, not suitable for circulation. Fact 18. The film's most memorable sound wasn't made by who you think. During the staircase scene, the protagonist ascends slowly, each footstep echoing with unnatural clarity. But the sound you hear isn't hers. Dozens of attempts were made to record her walk during ADR. None matched the tone. Something always felt off, either too soft or too timed. Eventually, the sound editor decided to try it himself. At 2:13 a.m., he recorded a single take in a cold studio hallway. The result was perfect, but after the mix was completed, he asked for his name to be removed from the credits. He never gave a reason. Later, a junior editor revealed that when the staircase scene plays in reverse, the footsteps fall into a different rhythm, one that matches a heartbeat. Except there are too many steps, too many beats. Fact 19. A legendary filmmaker showed up on set. No one invited him. Midway through production, a man arrived at the location shoot unannounced. No credentials, no warning. Dressed plainly, carrying nothing. The production coordinator moved to intercept until someone recognized him. He was a respected European director known for esoteric horror and experimental cinema. When asked what brought him there, he reportedly replied, "I heard something was being opened." He stayed for less than half an hour, observed a scene silently, then requested a private word with the director. After a short exchange, he nodded, smiled faintly, and left without another word. Later, a handwritten note was found on a camera case. It said, "If you film a door, don't forget what lives behind it." He has never acknowledged the visit. And when asked in an interview years later, he replied, "I don't remember that film, but it remembers me." Fact 20. The main character's name was never meant to be spoken, but it meant everything. Elandra voz. It appears once on a document flashed briefly during a scene. No one says it, no one refers to it. It might be mistaken for filler, but when reversed and phonetically filtered through Latin roots, the name renders something close to "she who holds the gate to the seventh circle." That phrase has meaning in older theological texts referring not to hell, but to a containment plane for memory, a place where knowledge waits, unguarded, but unreachable. Throughout the film, the number 7 recurs constantly: candles, steps, knocks, cuts, in the edit. It's never called out, but it's never absent. In an early draft of the script, the protagonist wasn't a visitor. She was a placeholder, not chosen to pass through, but to ensure others don't. So, maybe it's not a story about discovering a gate. Maybe it's about someone placed there to make sure no one opens it again. And maybe she's still there. Bonus fact, this movie may have overwritten something else intentionally. Before The Sentinel, 2006, appeared on production schedules, there was another film listed under the studio's horror development slate. Its name, Threshold, budgeted modestly, logline unclear. Status, in quiet pre-production. Then it vanished. No announcement, no cancellation, just disappeared. A week later, The Sentinel appeared greenlit quickly, using some of the same department heads. One costume designer later mentioned that early wardrobe sketches still bore the TH prefix on their file names. Even stranger, several early versions of the script contain scenes that do not appear in The Sentinel at all. Descriptions of spiral corridors, rituals involving sand, a secondary protagonist that was never cast. One line appears in both versions: "This place doesn't forget you." When asked about it in an interview, one crew member responded, "I still think we shot 2 films. We just didn't know when one ended and the other began." Some believe The Sentinel was a project born from scraps. Others think it was the remains of something the studio tried to bury, but buried things don't stay quiet forever. So, which version of The Sentinel did we really see? Was it a forgotten horror film? A repurposed project? Or something that slipped through half-written, half-remembered? Let us know in the comments which detail stayed with you, and whether you believe this was ever just fiction. And if you're drawn to stories like this, films that hide more than they reveal, consider subscribing. We go behind the facts, and sometimes what we find doesn't want to be found.